Now we're going to talk about the sum function, another one that you're going to use a lot. So before we talk about it, it's just a built-in function, right? The sum of some list, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can go ahead and print this, and we're going to see the result of the sum of 1 through 5, right? So 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 5 is 15, and we can see that output 15 over here. But let's go ahead and define a sum function. So we'll define my sum, okay? Now, we're going to take in a list, and I'll just name this LST. And we're going to just use a simple iteration over this list. So I'm going to use a for loop. I know we haven't talked about for loops as yet. We're getting to them soon. So I'm going to make a value, just sort of like a set value. And this is going to be the sum, but I can't use the word sum, okay? I have to modify it in some way. So maybe I'll call this my sum. I don't like using my for this, and normally I'll do something like this. So sum underscore, and we're going to start this at 0. And for every value in the list, so for every value, so I'll say for elements, right, for each element in the list, I'm going to go ahead and add it to the sum, and then I'm going to return the sum. So if I call this, I'm going to print my sum. I'll go ahead and grab this snippet from up here and change that to my sum. If I run this, I get 15. Great. So what if I put a 4 in here? Sorry, I put the string 4, or let's call this flee. Okay. Now what's going to happen? We're going to get an error. Unsupported operand. We can't add, right? We can't add a string to an integer. We just can't do that. So what do I do here? What I'm going to do is I'm going to check the type of the element. And this is not what the sum function does by itself, but I want to introduce this idea of type checking in order to perform an operation. So I'm just going to introduce it quickly. If the type of the element is an int, or the type of the element is a float. Only in those cases, so we're just making a condition, only in those cases will we sum it up. So we're going to get around this error because we've got a mixed list down here and we only want to use the ints and the floats in it. Now the built-in sum function, and I'll show this in a second, the built-in sum function won't allow this by default, but you are going to receive lists that are mixed, and sometimes you'll want to filter them into a new list. Other times, maybe you just want to write a quick summation function that will avoid the string or avoid the non-int or non-float types or whatever you're trying to avoid. So if I run this now, we get 11, right? So 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 5 is 11. Flee is not part of that summation. So I'm going to return to the built-in Python standard library sum function, and let's see what that does when we call with this mixed list. Again, we get this unsupported operand type for plus, which is built into the Python's definition of sum.